From starting the season with 1 win from 7 to becoming a team that has won 6 of their last 7, the Detroit Lions are making history in the NFL, but who should get the credit for the turnaround? Now let's not pretend that coaching is just about picking the starters and calling the plays. It also has to do with keeping your roster of 53 men motivated and determined. The only person in the modern era who could keep his players motivated with just 1 win from 7 games is head coach Dan Campbell. Now, if you haven't watched this season's Hard Knocks, which focused on the Detroit Lions training camp, you would have missed the emotional and sincere motivational speeches of Dan Campbell, where he spoke about grit. But what is grit to Dan Campbell? Well, here is his explanation. What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. And what does it mean? In a nutshell, I think it means this. We'll go a little bit longer, we'll push a little harder, and we'll think a little deeper and a little sharper. It means we're unbreakable. Like, to me, it means we'll play you anywhere. We'll play you on grass. We'll play you on turf. We'll go to a freaking landfill. It doesn't matter, and that's what we got to be. So clearly, Dan Campbell knows how to motivate and get the juices flowing, which is an important trait for a coach to possess, especially when the team isn't headed in the right direction. The captain of the ship needs to keep morale up and needs to find ways to get the best out of his players. But who are the players who stepped up during that winning stretch? Well, the losing streak ended with a win versus divisional rivals, the Green Bay Packers, in a very low-scoring affair. The 15-9 win for the Lions meant the star of the show was none other than the defense for the Lions, namely Kerby Joseph, who had deflected 3 passes and got 2 key interceptions. He also had the second most combined tackles in the game with 10. The first most combined tackles went to Derek Barnes with 12, who also had the only sack for the Lions in the game. Kerby Joseph is a rookie that was selected 97th overall by the Lions in the 2022 NFL Draft, who plays at safety and is only 22 years old. He clearly was impacted by the words of Dan Campbell. While Derek Barnes was drafted in the 4th round by the Lions in the 2021 NFL Draft and has only started in 4 games. To this day, Barnes' only sack came in that win versus Green Bay. And the winning didn't stop there, as the Lions roared into Chicago to take on the Bears, beating them in a thriller that ended 31-30. The Lions scored 21 points in the 4th quarter, and most of the scoring was down to the excellent play of their running backs Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. Now in the game, both running backs scored a touchdown each. Swift had only 6 attempts on the ground for 6 yards, but still managed to get into the end zone. It's been a difficult season for Swift, who had his breakout year last season, and the Bears game was his 3rd one back from injury, and he had to adjust to being the backup to Jamal Williams. Williams scored the winning touchdown of the game with a 1-yard rush with only 2 minutes and 21 seconds left on the clock. Williams this season has been a specialist goal line back who usually finds his way to the end zone, but the winning didn't stop there for Detroit. The Lions then traveled to the home of the New York Giants, where they recorded an impressive 31-18 victory. This win was made even more impressive as it was against a team that is in playoff contention. The Lions had a 17-6 lead in the half and showed no signs of letting the lead slip. The big offensive star on the day was again Jamal Williams, who had 3 rushing touchdowns. One was a 4-yard run and the other 2 were 1-yard rushes. Williams cemented himself as the back with 12 rushing touchdowns at this point in the season. But the winning stopped, if only for a moment, after a home loss to the Buffalo Bills. Now, there is no shame in losing to a Super Bowl contender, especially if the margin of defeat was only 3 points. It also meant that Coach Dan Campbell had to recalibrate his team and get them motivated for the remaining games. And it started with a thumping win at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was 23-6 at halftime and ended with a 40-14 score for the Lions. While the ground attack was the main catalyst for their previous wins, this time it was through the air where the Lions found joy. Quarterback Jared Goff threw for 340 yards, scoring 2 touchdowns and having 0 interceptions. It was an outstanding game for Goff, who had a pass completion percentage of 75.6%. His 2 touchdowns were directed toward his star wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown. To go along with his 2 touchdowns, St. Brown caught 11 passes from 12 targets for 114 yards. It was a near-perfect display from St. Brown, who is the clear best wide receiver on this team. So what happened the following week for the Lions? Well, another victory. again against a divisional rival, but this time the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, who were leading the NFC North, were deemed as the underdogs in this match by Vegas bookies. The Lions were leading 14-7 at the half and went on to win the game 34-23, thanks in large part to Jared Goff. Once again, Goff had an incredible game where he threw for 330 yards, scoring 3 touchdowns and having 0 interceptions. That is 2 games in a row where Goff was interception-free and scored multiple touchdowns. He had a pass completion percentage of 69.2%, and he completed passes to 9 different players. The main one was obviously St. Brown, who had 9 targets and 6 receptions, 68 yards and a touchdown. But the most productive Lions receiver was DJ Chark, who had 6 receptions and 94 yards from 7 targets and also a touchdown. But this victory will go down as one that was Goff-centric throughout. He ran the show and revealed he still possessed the talent to lead his team to victory. And the final win so far this season for the Lions came at the expense of the New York Jets on the Jets' home field. That is twice now that the Detroit Lions have gone to where the New York teams play and won. The game finished 20-17, but the Jets had a chance to tie the game with 1 second left. But their kicker missed a 58-yard field goal as time expired. But the first special teams marvel came from Khalif Raymond, who returned a 47-yard punt for a touchdown. It was the only touchdown of the game for the Lions, up until the 2-minute mark, where Goff threw a bomb 51-yard pass to Brock Wright for the score. Brock Wright is a tight end in his second year with the Lions and has been filling the void left by traded TJ Hawkinson. Now, the defensive performances worth noting in this game were of second-year man Jerry Jacobs, who had an interception which he returned for 38 yards, and Romeo Okwara, the veteran defensive end who led the Lions with 2 sacks. Now, the question that's begging for an answer is, will the Lions be winning it all for nothing? Even if the Lions don't get into the playoffs, it will still be seen as a victory for Dan Campbell and his men, because they rose from the ashes of despair into legitimate contenders for a playoff spot. And if they do make it to the playoffs, they will be regarded as one of the favorites because they will be playing with house money. They have nothing to lose and the pieces to make it work both offensively and defensively. Quarterback Jared Goff is suddenly reliable. The team can depend on the run duo Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, and the wide receiving core is spearheaded by Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is having a Pro Bowl type season. It's a matter of belief rather than skill. And the Lions have the man at the helm in Dan Campbell, who will instill that belief in them. He will remind them that they have to push a little harder, think a little deeper, and a little sharper. It is all about the grit of his team, and they've shown plenty of it. Having said that, the only team to go from 1-6 to the playoffs was the 1970 Cincinnati Bengals. So maybe now it's time for history to repeat itself. Do you think the Lions will make the playoffs? Please let us know in the comments below. But before you go, if you still want to watch some awesome NFL content like this, go ahead and watch the next video that will pop on your screen.